Pankration philosophy.
That's
The struggle is real. My fucking toe is just coming out.
Okay.
I don't give a fuck. Anyway, are you recording?
yeah.
Good. I want this at the goddamn beginning. Okay, I want it at the fucking beginning.
You look.
Sonic.
You
Not a
look.
sponsor.
Going for you.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome everybody. Here we are, Pankration Philosophy. My name is Pocholo Cruz.
Scott McDonald.
And this is back again, Morgan. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here again.
Yeah.
A little different of a space, but I like it.
It's a different environment.
We're not at UW Bothell where we're threatened by security.
Yeah.
Barge in and shut down production.
Exactly. We're just hanging outside. Yeah.
We're going underground now for a couple episodes because of just the public response has been amazing.
It's just too strong.
But it hasn't.
we're going underground. We're fighting the battle.
As you can see, we're cycling back through old guests.
No, an old guest, but stuff has changed since we last saw.
Yeah.
A lot.
Which is.
Totally.
I mean, speaking of stuff, first shout out to Mikhail for being our replacement video person.
Yeah.
I think Ender's having some. I don't know what's happening with him, but we hope he's back or soon or whatever. But yeah, anyway, so Morgan, it's been a while since you were last on, so I heard things have changed. So
Definitely.
what's going on?
Everything has changed almost.
Everything has changed?
It's kind of like, I kind of do this in my life a little bit where I'll be on a path doing something, I'll just do a 360 and holy shit, I'm going in a different direction.
Okay.
It's kind of what's happening right now. I don't know, it's like, for me, I've always been someone that likes to do a little bit of everything, and I don't know, my brain's been a little bit everywhere, so.
Okay. What would you say was the catalyst for this, I guess, change, or I guess, what happened? I guess it's been, it's been a couple months since we last talked to you, but like, what's been the shift? Yeah.
So just so we can kind of so when people watch this, we can start back from the last episode. You were getting prepared for a fight during that time.
Yeah.
And you had fought about a month or two after that, right?
I think I had just gotten word that I was fighting, and that it was probably like 8 or 10 weeks before
Yeah,
my
it was
fight.
about 2 weeks before.
And
Cause
so
because it was like April, I want to say. And then you fought in June.
Yeah.
You fought in the same card.
Yeah, fought in June. You had an amazing performance, dominant performance, very skillful performance, and you won, obviously. And you retained the title, the Axe title, at what weight was that again?
125.
125.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to
Backtrack.
get that out there because I gave before the show I read your burnt out
blog post
insert on the blog, so I'm
Fight
assuming
with
that's probably what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, totally.
Wait, what? That's what we're talking
Just
about?
to do that real succinct with the viewers.
Yeah.
So now you're caught up, but yeah, go ahead.
So, let's see. Won that fight June 2nd. A couple days later, I got on a plane, went and traveled a little bit, went to Oklahoma and then Georgia, and then came back from that, and I was like, oh man, just like the feeling of traveling for me is something I feel like, I don't know, it's just very freeing to me to go and experience new things, and I came back from it, and I was like, and then I got sick, so I've been dealing with this kind of like stress-induced illness since 2 weeks before my first fight with AMC.
That was in December.
That was in December,
right?
yeah. So it's kind of like I never have had this before, and then all of a sudden it kind of hits me in these times where I realize that I kind of need to make a change in my life because I'm either too stressed out or there's just things that my body is trying to tell me, and it's literally in my eyes, so I'm control of this. Like, it's my eye will break out in kind of like shingles, and it'll be painful, and when that happens to me, it kind of like makes me freak out a little, not necessarily freak out, but become more concerned about my actual personal health for my whole life. And so, and then also during that time, I was like, I saw this video on Facebook about this hockey player. He won, what is it called, the Stanley Cup?
Stanley Cup.
Twice, and he's dealing with all these brain injury issues, and he said he would take his name off the Stanley Cup twice to be able to have his brain health back. And that hit me, and I was like, damn, like, is this career in MMA, like, what is that going to do to me in 20 years, you know, or even 10 years? And for someone that's already struggled with depression and anxiety when I was younger, before I had any brain issues, it's pretty concerning to me that that would happen and be worse for me in the long run. And so all of that was kind of playing around in my head, and then so like being away from AMC for a little period of time, I felt even a bigger resistance to want to go back there for my health, and then also kind of like my mental health more than anything, because how I was kind of introduced to AMC and how some of the memories I've had there have been very difficult parts of my life. And so the further I was away from that, the more freed I felt like I was from that part of my life. And so it was kind of hard for me to want to go back to that. And so, I mean, I really have only been there a couple of days this last month. And it's really difficult for me because I love the people there. But there's certain parts that, like, for me to be able to move on from that part of my life, it's kind of hard to see that constant reminder that kind of feels like it still pulls me back in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I still know that there's like a fire in me to want to fight, because I went and watched some fights recently and I was like, oh, I want to be there, oh, and I'm just like, damn, but it's like, for right now I feel like I have to kind of take a step back and like focus on being a real person. I don't know. I kind of, you know, like when you become so engulfed into training MMA, it's like every single day, 24 hours a day is kind of like you're dedicating your life to it. And like I said earlier, even on the last podcast, I never wanted to identify myself as just a fighter. I realized that I'm just a creative person, and there's like so many different ways I can let that out.
Without getting brain damage. Well, that's the mental health side, and then just the feeling, the stress and feeling burnt out. I mean, that's a real thing. I think the mental aspect is something that's really draining on people, just whatever they want to pursue. And if anything, it reminds me a lot. I mean, I know Scott has some details on this, because Scott, didn't you step away for about 2 years in your amateur career? Like a year or so?
Yeah.
Extended amount of time. So would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, and it was more so, I think it was stress induced. I had a lot of things outside of the cage, meaning outside of the sport, that were just kind of chaotic and weren't under control. Just a few scares. I was getting into a little bit of trouble, and I had a relationship issue that had manifested and turned into something that was really distracting me. Like I always tell people, my second to last amateur fight, I don't know how I got through the training. I was on autopilot the whole time. I was just showing up, doing these drills. I wasn't even able to process whether I had a good session or not, and that's not typical of me. Usually, I'll sit and reflect and write about what I could have done better. But for that fight, that was it was on the Strikeforce undercard, and it was in Kent, so it was at the Showwear Center. Yeah. And that was 2012, I believe, and I think in April. But yeah, I just don't know I didn't know what was going on, and so I stepped away, got involved in some religious stuff, which would take a whole other podcast to unpack and describe to you.
We'll save that later.
So I exited the cage and ended up on college campuses preaching about Jesus. It's really wild times. But definitely don't do that anymore. But yeah, I had gotten to this place where I didn't have a social analysis of fighting, or kind of the analysis I do now. I was just fucking burnt out, and things weren't clear in my career. I had been told there had been a plan. This isn't directed at anybody in particular, by the way, but I've been told by multiple people that there was a plan for me and my talents. And to have that not be fucking clear, given because I knew what I was risking, you know what I mean? I knew what I was putting on the line, my body,
your health,
my fucking body. And then to have no clear plan, I just was well, fuck this, man. Let me just go do something else. And so I did leave, and then the sport slowly started calling me back. I would be bored and someone would be like, call me in as a sparring partner, and I would just come in and do work and then just disappear, you know, and just kind of leave my mark like this unknown dude, which was kind of badass to me. But even then, when I was sparring and stuff, I was like, what is the point of this? And so, and then I came back in 2013. Didn't plan on fighting, and, you know, DJ essentially got me a fight, like, and Matt was like, you know, this will be your last amateur one, so I took it 2 years off and just dominated, and then had a pro fight, and then in the pro fight is when it got weird. When I first got paid for fighting, that's when I want to say it ruined it for me, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you mentioned that before.
Well, I got a paycheck,
and
it's $1,000. It was $5 to show, $5 to win, and I'm just like, this is, I don't know how this is calculated. Like, all the fucking work I put in, all the times I had to go to the doctor for a cut or an injury came out of my pocket. And this is what
so like that balance also, but and then also just how you felt about it.
10 cents an hour, like, and you bring it down. You're like, shit, what?
I mean, this is like, well, prisoners are getting paid, like, really. And so, but no, I know the burnt out feeling, and I think, it's a message from your body and your brain, you know. And I had anxiety. I have issues still with anxiety and depression, and they were pre-existing before any brain issue. But I worry. Like, I never really got hit in my fights, but I did get hit in training. I know Joel talked about this, and I have concerns with memory and things like that, where I'm just like, you know, I don't know what caused it. Was it the time I fell out of the ring and landed on the concrete at first? Was it the time I got knocked down in sparring in Tacoma? You know, was it...
Or it could just be a culmination of everything. Because it shows that, you know, like, non-concussive blows, all that pays the price. Like, from there, no matter, like, how much it is. But, that's a very concerning thing that anyone has to...
And just kind of moving off me real quick, I had a question, Morgan, about the article you read, and just wanted your thoughts more on that, about the NHL player. Like, what about that? How did you compare that to your experience? Like, what did that do for you in this decision to, like, kind of step away? How did that impact you?
He talked a lot about his family, and like how he has little girls and he wants to be around you and he wants to be able to remember those memories with them. And I guess I've kind of had a change in heart about, like, how I really do one day want to have a family and want to be there for my kids and, like, be healthy. And I don't know, I think that was just like, I feel bad because he kind of felt like he wasn't aware of some of the issues that come from NHL, because, and he said, like, he's given brain damage, he's taken it, but with MMA it's literally like, that is what we do.
Brain damage is the point.
Yeah, or fucking with your limbs, you know what I mean?
Yeah, just damaging another human being is the I guess, sport.
And was there a moment for him, or actually before we talk about him, is there a moment for you in terms of, like, cognitive health? That, did you have any concerns that arose?
Yeah, so actually this last camp, I call it, like, the Wednesday from hell, because we spar on Tuesdays, right? I can't remember what part of camp it was, but I just remember taking, like, one shot that was pretty hard on the Tuesday, and then, like, didn't sleep very well, maybe had like 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and then the next day at work, I'm there and I'm just staring at my computer screen, like, not processing anything. The glare was super bad, and everyone around me, my coworkers were like, "Are you okay?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I just have a headache." And I was like, I gotta go work it. I had to, like, move my laptop and my workstation, and they were like, "You should just go home, because, like, you're just not there." Like, and it was scary to me, and then the headache kind of lasted a couple more days, and just like, like, those moments, you know, you remember those certain moments where you feel like you really took a certain amount of brain damage, or whatever, had, like, headaches and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They don't, like, leave you, and you're like, and there's definitely moments where, like, I've realized maybe my memory isn't as great as it used to be, and I don't know if I've always had speech impediment issues or if it's just kind of gotten worse, but I don't know. I don't know if a career in MMA is worth it, but I do enjoy fighting, so it's kind of like this toss-up, or I feel perplexed about it.
Yeah, but you have to look at the pros and cons, but I feel like what's happening for you is that the cons are being highlighted, and you're aware of the risk. You're not like how the NHL player was on how he was doing the action, but he wasn't quite aware what the cost is. It's different where you know what the cost is, and you're starting to see it already in a pretty young career.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I broke my nose and I took a knee to the nose, like, that definitely gave me a concussion because, like, I kind of blacked in and out of that. Like, the memories I have from that are kind of shady, and just, like, that's also, like, a reminder of the damage that's being caused to us when you're doing a sport like MMA. And it's kind of hard to see past that when it's, like, my nose and then my eye is literally telling me, like, what you're doing is not healthy, or it's my body's, like, reacting to resist it.
Mm-hmm. And these are like, this is like the elephant in the room with MMA. You know what I mean? And I feel like nobody, actually I want to give a lot of credit to Matt Hume, because I feel like if you approach him about this issue, I know you talked with him, maybe, I don't know if you guys talked about this, but I feel like when I approached him, I didn't explicitly say I had concerns, but I just said I was having some issues, and we talked about future and college and different types of plans. And so, I mean, it's an honor to be around someone who thinks like that, but, I mean, it's not common practice to talk with athletes about the real risk of MMA, like the real genuine risk that it poses on you and your health, and it's not like, I mean, the deaths are very minimal, right? But again, it's
For now.
Right.
but it's like
The offset of it, because like think about,
yeah.
I mean, you mentioned too, like your brother-in-law or your sister's boyfriend. It's definitely
We're gonna have him on too.
Definitely suffering from CTE, and like look at just, it seems like every like, and always on the newspapers, it's like some NFL player suicide or
Junior Seau, right?
Yeah.
Where did he shoot himself?
Shot
in the head, in the chest, because he's like, look at my brain.
Yeah.
I want you guys to look at my brain, and that's, yeah. I mean, when I got into college though, that's when I really realized I was having issues.
Like the toll it took on your brain.
Yeah, even a few shots. Like I'd be in class.
Yeah.
Like I remember I was in this lifespan psychology class at Cascadia. That was like my second quarter there, and the instructor was really patient. She had a gentle voice, so it wasn't like anything she was doing, but I would stop hearing her because I'd have like a body panic attack where I'd be like, I gotta move, I gotta fucking leave, and I'd stand up, leave the classroom, like I'd rush out of the classroom, walk around the campus, come sit down, she'd ask me a question, I'd answer it, but I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like my mind wasn't in the classroom. I don't know how I was functioning, and it was just a real scary place to be on. I was going to doctors all the time. I was like, what's the issue? I know I've had these issues for a while, but it seems like it's getting worse.
Yeah.
So I don't know what it is. It could be a culmination of everything, but now when I go and talk to professionals and I tell them that I fight, they get really concerned. They're like, well, did anything happen to you when you fought? Were you ever knocked out? Do you remember being hit really hard?
Yeah.
And it's like a part of the overall diagnosis process now.
Yes.
So it is fucking scary too, especially when you look at it. Like I remember on one podcast I called it MMA activity the gladiator class.
Yeah.
Because that's really what it is. You occupy an interesting place in society where you're doing this activity that is utterly thrilling to people, and yet you're getting paid to hurt somebody else. Really, that's what you're fucking doing. You know, you can dress it up and talk about the beautiful things you talked about, like, you versus yourself. But when you pass through the other side of this, you're like, there's so many other activities I can do where I can face myself.
Totally.
Other than this, with the risks,
Yeah.
And this is what I think the industry does, like the big corporation like UFC. They'll look at all the success stories and the people who don't have brain damage, and they'll just be like, well, look at these people.
Well, yeah, that's what the focus is on.
Yeah, or they just aren't showing the signs. Yeah, because I mean, MMA is still a pretty young sport, and so we haven't really reached that point where you can do a lot of research on all the people that have retired and passed away.
Really, it's just now that that the first generation. Some of the first generation is still fighting, like Hoist Gracie and
Like Gary, I'm just looking this up.
Oh, Gary Goodridge. That is the
Gary Goodridge.
That's like the classic, or I guess not classic, but that's like the pinnacle right now of like brain damage, like in MMA.
Right.
Like, that's a very he had a very telling, interview where he is damaged for sure. He goes like, today is the best day I'll ever have, and then it's just gonna get worse the next day. It's very, he just can't remember anything.
Yeah.
From there, just like the fighting took its toll and took away, pretty much took away his cognitive functions.
Yeah, there was a 23-year-old that died in a car accident or something like that, who was a professional MMA
the
fighter.
Bellator fight, and he had onset of CTE already.
Yeah, and he didn't even have that many fights. I don't think he was ever even. Was he knocked out in a fight?
No, he was never. I think he was undefeated. I think he is like 10-0, and it was like on the rise in Bellator. I remember that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So like that's the thing. We are gambling with our health, like for sure. It's like the damage is there.
There was a fucking spider on my head. Just thought it was
Oh, nice.
Yep. Yeah.
We're talking about all this brain shit, and I was like, why is my brain tingling?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Spider?
There's the fucking spider.
Your spider sensitive.
But I don't want to kill it, but I'll flick it. It probably died.
Nope, it's still alive, still kicking. It's like, fuck you, Scott.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like I'm looking at Gary Goodridge's fucking Twitter right now, and it's like all these like motivational quotes about. Let me see here. Because you're right, it gets progressively worse for him.
Yes.
And this is what these are. You want to know what his hashtags are?
No.
Hashtag depression.
Yeah.
Hashtag brain injury. Hashtag concussion. Hashtag CTE.
Brain injuries brain injuries definitely lead to, like you said, depression, more anxiety. It's just the fact because you're damaging your brain. The movie Concussion. Hell, I mean, look at like the recent news. Look what happened like Max Holloway.
Oh yeah, that's a big
my God.
one.
Max we talk about that?
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, Max Holloway is only, I want to say 26 years old, but already like,
26.
Yeah, already.
So I watched him warm up, and I was like, it's probably the weight cut.
Why he's moving so sluggish? Yeah.
But then he had that interview with when Bisping was there.
Yeah.
And he was just like, it's just ready to go, man. And I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Like, he was significantly slower. And then I went back and I did a YouTube search on previous interviews, like after he had won against Jose Aldo, and he seemed pretty sharp. Like, just in terms of understanding what's going on, just the flow of his words. He wasn't getting caught up.
Yeah.
Then on this one, he just was so slow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's scary. That's a champion.
Bisping called him out on it, right? He's like, "Are you feeling okay?
Are you feeling okay?" He's like, "Oh yeah, good to go." Like, it's like it looks like you're about to fall asleep.
Yeah. I think Kat Zingano, that's her name.
Yeah.
She was talking on the Joe Rogan podcast about how she had a TMI and she was going through all this different kind of therapy stuff.
Yeah, that's right. But how did she get that? Wasn't she involved in a car collision? I forget why.
I thought she got it after her fight with Amanda Nunes.
Well, I'm sure that too.
Yeah.
I'm sure that didn't help.
Yeah.
No.
See, I've never had a fight like that. I've never had a fight where I was really given much damage or.
I mean, really, Scott, on the same token like you too. I mean, you got adversity for sure, but nothing. But you didn't. But that's the thing. It shows you don't need to have a devastating knockout loss to still get.
To have it be clear.
Yeah, because
damage
happening there.
Me and Joel, and I just remember I had sparring sessions with Joel where it wasn't like he was hitting me to where I was just like, oh, I'm reeling, but he was hitting me and it was sharp. Each time it was just like a sharp snap.
Yeah.
Over, snap, snap, snap.
Well, I remember that because I could hear it.
Yeah. No, when me and him would go, you'd hear bah, 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 just leather. And then I remember sessions would end and I wouldn't really know where to go walk. I would feel kind of like, I would feel really dizzy.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, oh no, it's just because we circle so much, it's like, we're making each other dizzy.
Yeah.
But I was like, no. And there was times.
Was just you rationalizing in your head? Yeah.
Yeah, so I really don't. And I sparred Bibiano a lot and Jake.
Yeah.
And I mean, they didn't hit. Bibiano just, I don't want to air him out on this podcast, but there's just certain people who go fucking hard. Jake too. Aberlowski was one of them. So, yeah. I heard a philosopher talk about, it was actually Sam Harris, on one of his podcasts, he talked about brain and brain health and meditation, and he said we have to treat the brain like the pilot in an airplane.
Yeah.
So if the airplane is moving a certain way, or it's diving, or it's dipping, or it's steady, you always look to the brain to know what's going on. We can't detach behavior apart from brain processing.
Yeah.
So I'm telling you, there's still days I have where it's just like, it's a complete anxiety-ridden day, and there's days where I have peace and calm. And there's the next day maybe a depression-based day where that's all it is, and it's like something's going on.
Yeah.
Right?
No, and like you said, you may have had your previous issues with this, but I mean, we can just say right now that your MMA career did not help that at all.
Right.
So,
No.
Yeah.
I used to think that there's something wrong with my hearing. Like I would go to like the, I don't know what's a hearing doctor or ear doctor, and they're like, no, your
like
test's
hearing tests.
fine.
Yeah.
But then I was like, but I'm not hearing people.
Yeah.
No, same thing.
Yeah,
And
but it's like I just
it's not
like
the
what?
ears,
But it's like I know you're speaking to me. I can literally see it, but I'm like not cognitively processing what you're saying.
That's crazy because I just got a critique at my job for that, where it was like, oh, I feel like I tell you stuff, but then it gets lost, and I'm like, I don't know, dude, like, same thing, and I don't know if that was worse before, like, I don't fucking
But see,
know.
that's the thing you can't.
This is a really vulnerable podcast, but I'm comfortable sharing this stuff with
No, because people need to know.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the thing, like, this is, because this is reality. That's the thing, this isn't we're not selling anything here, we're not selling, like, a product, we're just saying, like, I mean, that's how it is. I mean, all of us are deeply involved in, the martial arts. So, like, we know that that's true. All the guests we've had we're all deeply involved in martial arts, and they all face that same thing. But I guess the only time we really came close to talking about it was with Joel, and I mean, we're talking about damage. Like, Joel's faced through like some serious wars, and then I mean, hard training, but like the fights were brutal. I mean, just
I have not seen just fight. Maybe like if I think like Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner as like Joel had fights like that whole
like it was like about like every single time, like that.
And that's why I want to get into this, and I want to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the will of a fighter that actually ends up being the most detrimental.
Yes.
Because
yes.
And so what are you doing? Because first of all, are you just stepping away from competition?
I think I'm just gonna get into jiu-jitsu. I think I love grappling, and I think I just want to focus on that and just give my brain some time just to like hang out, but still stay training. Well, thing is, I'm actually gonna be moving for a short period of time. I kind of feel like I needed a refresher in my life, so I'm gonna start new. But I'm just gonna go back to training. Well, actually, not go back. I've never just trained jiu-jitsu before, so I want to be in the gi. I want to do that a little bit.
But the will, because you talked about earlier, you went and watched some fights.
Yeah.
And then you expressed it as this very visceral thing where you're like looking at these fighters and you're like, I can get in there and I can do that.
Yeah.
That's your will. How are you grappling? How are you grappling with your will?
Yeah, like grappling. Yeah.
Such a corny. Our podcast can be really corny. It's like, how are you?
Pankration philosophy, grappling with ideas.
Yeah.
Wrestling with thoughts.
So yeah, I want to know how you're grappling with that.
Striking ideas.
And I'll just make a comment on it because for me, that's what would happen is I'd get this like itch and then I'd show up and I'd train. And I wouldn't have trained for like months and I'd still just have these phenomenal like training sessions and I'm like, I'm the shit. The shit. And so and that's what kept me going back was the will and just the need to know that I could still do it. But how are you dealing with that right now? Like
well, right now it's still pretty fresh, so I feel like if anything I'm in that stage of being burnt out where it's like I don't want to do anything. Like I just want to do nothing. At the same time, like I've always been a super competitive person. So I think I like sign up for things like the Spartan race. So just finding other ways to outlet that competitiveness and that like desire to challenge myself is kind of how I'm thinking about doing it. But I don't know. I haven't really processed that or gotten to that point yet of like, God, I need to do this.
do you feel like it's gonna be an obstacle?
To want to fight again?
With a will, your own will towards fighting and competing in MMA, do you feel like that's going to be an obstacle for you in taking a break and stepping away?
In the way that it's going to be difficult for me to stay away from it? Yeah, because I'm already like, fuck. It just makes me feel so perplexed about it because I know I feel like I really want to focus on being healthy again. But because like things were just getting great in my career, I guess, right? But I don't know. I think for me, it's just gonna be like focusing on different things and putting my attention on other stuff. That kind of helps me get through that. I've been watching a lot of dance shows lately. I'm like, so it's like So You Think You Dance. I'm like,
all those guys. In fact, like it's a rarity. Joe Louis, like pretty much like the only people that didn't suffer like devastating defeats later in their careers were the ones who like ended it early, like Rocky Marciano, but he died in a plane crash.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that kind of ended badly for that. But almost every single great fighter hung in too long.
yeah.
Because that's the thing. But it's a double-edged sword. The will to go out and compete is the same thing that drove them to greatness, but it's the same thing that led them to ruin.
Yeah, and that is always the thing and you also don't have people in your circle that are telling you to stop.
Yeah.
Like your family's never enough.
Exactly.
Your family is like there's a documentary out there about it actually was filmed here in Washington about this guy. I think he trains at what's his name? It's like United Fight Center.
Okay. Yeah. It's
United Training Center.
Yeah,
Who's the owner of that?
Ellis.
Isn't that Eddie Ellis? Yeah.
So this guy in this film trained out of there, and it's like it's an interesting documentary because it's him hiding the fact that he fights MMA from his family, pretty much.
Oh,
like,
damn.
They don't want him. They find out later, but
yeah.
They didn't want him to fight because of his age. But it's like he just keeps going and doing it. So you have to ask yourself, like, you have to sit with yourself and go, what is driving me towards this?
Yeah.
And can I get these questions answered somewhere else?
Totally.
And it's kind of like Greg was on. I watched Greg's podcast and it was
Yeah.
great. And he talked about like the MMA in the third world and how. Some people believe it's exploitative and this and that, but I mean, the people love it and it's inspiring. Yeah. But I'm always like, inspiring at what cost?
Yeah.
Towards what end?
Also,
that's like
also the enormous poverty too.
So I'm like, if you're setting up shop in this like poverty-stricken country and then you're just trying to pipeline people through this so then you can make your show as successful as possible. I'm just like, where are the other alternatives? And hopefully your industry is contributing to that. I doubt it.
It's just real life Slumdog Millionaire.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And that's with fucking brain damage.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
I don't know. That was hard for me, was dealing with the will. And then like, and just all the, you talked about it in your blog and it just hit me because you were talking about you had a battle with yourself during training and a battle with expectations of people that thought you could take this to the highest level.
Yeah, absolutely.
So battles with you thinking you can't do it, which is crazy because you're fucking good, and then just people's commentary, like the critics, And so for me that was always an issue where it's like I'll come in a training session and I'll have world champions saying you could be a world champ, and then it's like, well, fuck. If I don't do this, I'll feel guilty. But can I do it? Can I not do it? And it's just this fucking mental.
Yeah, it's a mental labyrinth you have to deal with. But I think at the end of the day, like your guide should be why you're doing it.
Right.
We're talking to you. I think the big thing, you have to be the driver of your life, but you have to realize too like what you're driving towards. Too.
Yeah, like what do I want? Because like especially with MMA, once I got into it, people are instantly like, oh, you're good at this. I mean, because I've been naturally athletic my whole life, kind of thing, and a lot of people tell me, oh, like. You can be world champ, blah, 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 like, you can do this, and then I kind of got stuck in that bubble, and that's kind of the only people I was around, and then I wasn't able to hear my own self of, like, but do I want that? Like, do I want to sacrifice my whole life for that?
You're getting funneled towards something.
Yeah, and it's like, there's a part that feels good when people are like, yeah, you can do that, and then, but then there's all this other stuff that you have to deal with.
What's your advice, because I know this is just new for you, but what's your advice for like women coming into the sport, young women, or just even young fighters coming in who have this like goal in mind of wanting to fight, wanting to be a world champion? I mean, what's your advice to them?
Like, let's say if you could talk to yourself.
Like, where Morgan right now, not Morgan the fierce competitor who's like gonna take it to the top of the competitive ladder, but where you're at right now, what would be your advice?
Like, what if you could talk to yourself, like, before you first stepped in, like, more looking into getting into shape, not knowing what she's about to, get herself into.
Yeah. My advice would be to ask yourself questions. And ask yourself questions that make you think about something, like what do you truly value in your life? And that's something that I really had to ask myself, like, what do I really value, like, in life holistically? and like what drives you to get up in the morning, and what makes you, I guess, like feel happy. Like, happiness is kind of like in and out of your life, but what's gonna bring you fulfillment, and not necessarily success. Like, I feel like those have to be separated. And yeah, I would definitely say like what is true to you also. And that's something that I'm trying to like really discover in myself, because I've been the type of person that like when I get thrown into an environment, I'm like, oh, like I can be super susceptible to like want to mold into that environment. And so like I feel like I've had a hard time figuring out what my own voice and like what my own thoughts are, and like what I want to do, because someone who has kind of been like a people pleaser, like you want to make everybody happy, and so like if that's being this kind of person for that kind of person, like you'll try to be that kind of person. So I'm trying to get away from that and figure out what makes me feel the most fulfilled and happy and most true to myself.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, you hear all these voices, but you have to filter it out. You have to hear your own voice because you've been so busy hearing other people's voices.
Now, what about? Are you familiar with Jens Pulver's story as a fighter?
Not really.
So, like Jens Pulver, I've actually trained with him early on in my career. Like he came from a household just ridden with alcoholism and just severe abuse by his father. And I know this sport attracts people who have a lot of trauma. So, and most of us don't really know that when we get into it until we have a conversation with like a training partner about it, or just someone in our life who is able to help us put it together. Do you think this is a good outlet, like fighting in the cage, is it a good outlet to resolve any type of issue? Just be honest, like if your answer is like, fuck yeah, I felt empowered, I was able to get some reclamation for the issues I've been through or whatever, say yes. But if you think no, because I think that's another important thing that is just on record, like you commenting on that,
Yeah, I think it's something that we like to tell ourselves, that we face in a fight. But it's kind of true in the way that when you're training and we're sparring or you're fighting, you kind of are expressing your most true self, and like personality-wise, like we talked about how DJ has a certain personality, Greg has a certain personality, Scott, Control, you guys all have certain personalities that come out when you're training, and but I don't think that getting in a fight is the only way you can kind of discover that and deal with that kind of abuse. Because I faced a little bit of abuse in my life. I wouldn't say that I've had like a terrible upbringing or been through like the worst abusive relationships ever, because that's definitely not the case. But I don't feel like fighting was the best way for me to deal with that. If anything, like the damage that comes from combat sports is almost worse for you in the long run when you have to really deal with those abusive memories and stuff like that. What was your...
That was it.
Yeah.
No, I feel like that was it in a roundabout way. Because for me, it's like, I'm realizing this too, if it's not fighting, for some people can be a fucking corporate CEO and have all sorts of crazy trauma and psychopathic tendencies.
Yeah.
And they unleash that
and that's how they unleash
unleash it on the rest of the world. So, what we're just talking about is fighting.
Yeah.
But I know most people I've sat and talked with in the gym.
Yeah.
We are kind of a different group and a different class of people.
That's true.
And there's trauma that comes in, like, and it's two ways. Either people are just upfront with that, like Greg.
Yeah.
Like Greg, if you sit and talk with him long enough, you come to discover just the guy's been through a lot of shit, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like, if you're privileged enough to have that conversation with him, and he just acknowledges it, and he's like, yeah, it's probably what led him.
Yeah. But some people are not as aware.
And he doesn't say that's the only reason, but he knows it's a part of it. And there's some people that just cut that off.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, they're so detached from it because maybe they've climbed the ladder or whatever. It's like, now this is a career or whatever it may be for them. But I think it is history drives us forward, right? Whether it's 5 minutes or 5 years or it's 500 years, whatever it is, it's, in our short lifespans, it certainly is dictating our decisions, what's happened to us. And I just have yet to meet someone who's gotten into MMA and it's just like, hasn't had something happen where they felt powerless or bullied or had something go wrong or instability in their life.
Something negative that drove them to that.
Or maybe just in society they weren't like the atypical social interactor, so they were like, well fuck, I'll find community here. Or they were in desperate need of community, or I don't know.
How about you, Scott? Like, what would you say if you know, because knowing you had to deal with things before, like, do you think you could have found? I mean, it's hard to say. Like, do you think you could have found a different outlet other than fighting, or do you think that this was pretty much it for you? Yeah.
No, because like even with everything I just said, for me, like I didn't find any type of like place within the educational institution. I actually had a pretty rough go around there.
Yeah.
The workforce, I caught on to like the game that is like labor real quick. Like there's great jobs out there, but I always just felt like there was something off about the jobs I was moving through.
Yes.
Then I remember when I came back to college, after I graduated high school at 18, I was sitting in a classroom and I was like, I feel like I did when I was in first grade, when I was like being taken out of class and put in special classrooms and then wasn't supposed to be in the special classroom and then thrown into another classroom and all that shit. Fighting gave me something, I think, that in an interesting way, it did empower me because I did get bullied and I did feel powerless physically and wasn't always able to use my words. So being able to just confront conflict like that, I felt granted me some resolution. Did it cost me some stuff? Of course. Yeah. And I'm not sitting here saying go and do it. I'm just not saying that. But for me, I don't know who I'd be without going through it. Yeah. You know, for Scott McDonald, I just feel like that's the case. I feel like fighting was a necessary thing for me to pass through.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, for me, I used to beat myself up quite a bit. I was I just had a lot of self-hatred to myself, and kind of going through training and stuff like that. I definitely feel like it's helped me gain a level of confidence and a sense of I can do this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's powerful about going through training camps too. Is well, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right?
No, it is. I hear what you're saying. I hear both of you saying. It's that me versus, it's you versus you, yourself versus that. And I feel like a point that Scott brought up, a lot of damaged people. It's because they've been to a point where they're powerless and they want to take back that power, from there. And sometimes that's what they need to realize, that they are in control of something. Because it's like what Scott's saying. It's a certain breed of person that wants to get themselves involved in this kind of thing. Because it's crazy. But it's I remember our episode with Vincent when you're talking about he had a friend go someone will force you to fight another man in a cage, and you said, oh, why you gotta say it like that? Mm-hmm. They're well, there's no other way to say it. That's what you did. But that's true. That's how it is a crazy venture. What all of us have gone into. Think about it, just from a third person perspective. We've gone to a place where we trained for several weeks so we could engage in hand-to-hand combat with a person we didn't really know who was there willing to, engage us in combat as well. That's a pretty ridiculous proposal.
Well, I feel like this is the other part of it too. Is in the documentary Fightville, it's about
Dustin Poirier. Yes.
Dustin Poirier's in it, and there's this interesting kind of cut scene where he's in the cage, he's throwing a high kick.
Yeah.
And he's talking. He's fighting is serene, and it's serene for a couple of reasons. Yeah. Because just the rawness of it, and the fact that everything else is kind of pushed into the margins.
Yeah.
So whatever shit happened in a miscommunication, or the words I failed to have, or the fact that my boss is a dick when I have to go back to work on Monday, or my bills, or any of that, it goes like this.
It's like an escape.
And it's this just serene moment, and it's very primitive, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's our combat is such a minimized form. You know what I mean? There's large scale combat, that are done for narrow interests and monetary gain and all that shit. But for us, it's just this pure serene moment. Very rarely have I met somebody that I've competed against that I've disliked. Yeah. And or that I didn't respect them afterwards, or I was just okay.
The respect. I don't need to like people, but I do respect the fact that they're willing to go out. I feel the same.
It's here you go, because you're. And I feel for both of them, it's one thing to want to be a world champion, but I feel you just confront you and this other person you're in this fight with. It's you owe it to them. You owe it to them for them to be there with you, to put it on the line with you. That's what they're doing.
It's that warrior mentality, and then the recognizing of other warriors, from there. And I feel that I feel that that's, that's a unique thing. That's the thing that really only a few people can understand what that feels like or feel the need to do it. Because I'm thinking, along the same lines like as you, Sky. I feel like while I understand all the damage, that's happening, I feel what you have to use fighting for. It's like a forge. You can use the flames. You can use the flames to build you up, but then the same flames that can build you up are the same ones that are gonna melt you into nothing. So it's like knowing that.
And greater than just the fighting in the cage, it's so funny to me, is like, at least at AMC, and I think most gyms can say this, it's such a collaborative model of just working with people.
Yeah.
And the whole individualistic thing for MMA athletes is complete and utter bullshit. And I hate that part of the game where it's like, I made myself, or I did this.
Self-made.
It's like
that's what Cody Garbrandt has on his neck.
Well, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah,
it's
Cody Garbrandt, whatever. Bad decisions.
But you learn about interpersonal and collaborative models of organization by participating in a martial art. Because you can only be as good as your training partner. There's no...
It's your tribe.
It's your tribe, right? And the support when someone goes and fights, and then like the encouragement and showing up and the resources that all of you spend to be there together to help each other reach
it's intrinsic and
goals,
you feel that.
is something that we should want to create in the rest of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know sometimes, like, and that's what's frustrating even for me about all the TJ Dillashaw stories.
Yeah.
Is it's like now you're creating corrosive environments because you're crying and you're so competitive that you don't care about your sparring partners. You're injuring them, and when they get the better of you, you're throwing a temper tantrum. You're backstabbing your entire team.
Hitting them after the bell.
Hitting them after the bell, all to get to this belt. And it's like
just so selfish. But that's the thing I think that's why. No, but that's why he's so. When they called him, the snake in the grass, like everyone, realizes that. And that's funny how his popularity went to because I feel, especially, knowing, being in that, I guess, fight tribal mindset, you understand that, that there's a loyalty. I mean, that's the thing, like, I may not, like personally everybody, but I respect what they're willing to do, especially, from, like, the tribe that I'm from.
But in terms of your growth, even the guy you fought was a part of your growth.
Exactly.
And his gym being available to be there for you to compete helped your growth.
I respect that. Yeah, like I'm not friends with the person, but like, I know if it wasn't that moment, that growth wouldn't have been possible without that.
Right.
So I feel it's just like how when when warriors would clash on the battlefield, like they would be victorious and stuff, but they would be and I think because in victory it's not just. You're not just happy; it's also like relief that you made it. Like you made it to like another thing. Because that's how I felt. I was like, well, this is it's like another one down, and I'm still alive.
I definitely felt that. I was like, oh, it's over. Did it?
Because it's different than winning. I don't know if I won like a bowling game. It's like, oh man, I came out like again, like fairly, I guess.
They're a perfect score,
Because of the risk, the risk involved. It's like it's higher risk, higher I guess reward from that. But I feel it's a sense because I remember, as much as we can make fun of like Chael Sonnen had a thing like when asked, oh, how do you feel after victory? He goes like, I feel an overwhelming sense of relief, not happiness, relief that I was able to get it because it's just like that. It's so much stress to like a single moment, a single like moment that could, only last like very few minutes, really like a short amount of your life. Yet a lot of time has been riding on it.
Totally. I remember, like I was watching this video kind of like after I was feeling burnt out and after I posted a blog about the first time I ever knocked out a girl, and I was just watching my behavior after about it, and I remember I hit her and then just kind of walked away and just was like looking down at the ground because it's not a sense of like I wasn't proud of myself. And even in this last fight, like fighting for me has never been to the point where I want to beat someone up. And so it's like I think I felt more of that relief sense. Like I remember laying on the mat after I was down, I was just like, yes, like it's finally done with. Like I did it.
Like you're past that stress that was all building up towards this moment. Yeah,
but it's not happiness over hurting someone.
Exactly, because people don't quite understand like how you feel. Like from there, like there's an elation, but there's that elation that it's over with. Like the work is done, like for real this time. So.
Some fighters, like, I think it's Mike Perry, was that?
Yeah.
He's like, it's gonna be blood, it's gonna be all this violence, and I'm like,
that guy.
No, but that's the thing, and I think about what Scott said, like in terms of damage, people like you can't say that guy, because I think of Jens Pulver. It's like Jens was very real and honest with like what happened to him. But I feel like when I see people like that, I feel like okay, that's like, and I mean I showed that to you too because I knew what you were thinking about like from there. But like some people, like where else is a Mike Perry gonna get his like outlet? From there. Where else would a Jens Pulver get that outlet from there? Because it's not. It wouldn't be through. Like I don't like Mike Perry's not gonna be on the TED Talk. He's not gonna be on the. I mean, he could be a great dancer. I don't know, but he's not gonna get that relief playing ping pong. So.
Yeah, and it's hard because then what you have is you have everyone who's agreeing to these terms. It'd be different if there was like some sort of entity that was snatching
people up
and like, motherfucker, you're gonna train, and then you're gonna find another poor person, and we're gonna make billions off of it. It's certainly not that.
Yeah, it's not that yet.
But I mean, you can make the argument that it's just all the pressures that push one towards that.
Yeah.
And how do you make it less likely? It's like kind of the issue I have with like inner city youth who are just, or even in rural youth too, who are just pushed into like the NFL just by circumstance, right?
Circumstances,
or they fall through or they're in. It's just like the whole me and Tim had an eloquent conversation. Yes, Tim Berry. Me and Tim Berry. About how star college athletes just get pushed through college.
Well, because they get funneled through and
then they get money.
Yeah.
And they don't know what the fuck to do with it, and then after it's done, they have nothing.
Because that's all they know. They've never been given a structure.
So the contradictions are present in this sport and in this game, and I just
athletics in general.
Athletics in general, yeah.
It's like the curse of talent. The more talented you are, the more exploited you will. It's just how it is.
And we're very focused people too, and I think time passes, and as time passes, you fail to see like maybe the greater fights that are present in the world, and like. I'll never forget Dan Gable in the Munich games. Olympics when those Israeli athletes were killed by the Palestinian Liberation Organization. A huge event in history, just a terrorist attack at the Olympics. And Dan Gable had competed, and he gets off the plane back in America, and he had won gold, right? Yeah. And all these reporters just swarm on him, and they're like, Dan, what did you think about what happened to the Israeli athletes? And da-da-da. And he's just like, what? What are you guys talking about? And they're like, you didn't hear what happened when you were in... He's like... That is the type of fucking focus that it takes for most people to get to that level of accolade. You can't worry about social circumstances. You can't worry about anybody else.
Yeah.
And if you can sacrifice that for your entire life, and then you accumulate, a little bit like some property and some wealth, and you take care of your kids and you do all those things, that's fine. Go ahead and live that life. But for me, it's hard to reconcile that part of me being concerned about the fucking world, which will probably never leave me, and then being so narrowly focused on a game. I mean, politics are games too, right? But it's just like this is an interesting type of game.
It's a very superficial game. You think about it. It's like when, once again, back to like the episode we have with Vincent. You go like, oh yeah, they had Robbie Lawler, Rory McDonald. Their second fight was one for the ages, but also who's gonna remember that essentially? Like how much is that gonna change in the world scale? So I think that's the way like you're looking at it. Like from there, it's like why does that matter?
I'm like, motherfuckers don't think about the Roman Empire, let alone, you go throughout your whole day and forget about Rome. You're just like, okay. Unless you live and you're in that region. Yeah. Something as great as that, a structure as great as that has impacted all of history, is rarely considered.
It made effects towards the rest of the time.
But a world champion's going to be considered when all this shit is done? Probably not. You know what I mean? So I don't know. And not saying that if you leave MMA, you'll be like a major influencer in that light. I mean, I think that a lot of luck and talent has to do with being considered in that light, but you just learn very quickly there's just more important things.
It's also understanding, what's important to you.
Yeah, and that starts to come out for you, right? If you have time to reflect.
And that's definitely what it was, is I finally had that time of space and being away from it all and being outside that environment where I was like, really had that time to think about it and just hear my own voice about it. It's just like, damn, do I really want that? I mean, I have these people telling me, like, you're going to do this, you're going to go on this pathway, like, you're set up for this, and I'm like, do I want that for myself, though? Like, am I willing to sacrifice my young life and my health for something that's, like, could never even happen? I mean, that's a risk I think we take with anything, any kind of dream someone takes, is like, are you going to sacrifice your life for this one goal? but is that even my goal, or is that someone else's goal that planted that into my head?
Exactly.
And you know what's really refreshing about your opportunity to breathe and to think is like, thank God it happened right now versus in like a week leading up to a big ass fight on the biggest stage where you haven't made that commitment.
Yeah.
Right? Because it really is subjective, and subjectivity doesn't lack knowledge, insight, or intelligence. You know, and because the objective facts of fighting are it's just violence and damage, and, it is financial reward. It is like glory and great relief if you were to labor your whole life in this sport and then get a title belt wrapped around your waist. I mean, the elation that would come with that, I feel is like similar to when you get your college degree or something.
Yeah.
With different costs. It's not like you're studying
Yeah.
for
You're like,
exam.
come on, the best one.
But you get, I get
Yeah.
the reward centers in the brain and how they operate towards that same end. But thank God you're getting that now, because towards those last couple amateur fights for me, I would be bouncing around in the ring or cage, and I'd be like, the fuck am I doing in here? And I can't leave now.
Exactly. Like the door is actually closed.
My second title fight,
Yeah.
fought a really tough guy. I won by KO, but I was just bouncing around.
Was this your second to last one?
This is my second, my first amateur title defense,
Okay.
the Genesis title.
Was this the one when you started floating?
Oh yeah, I just lost in that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But no, I'm bouncing around.
You're bouncing around.
DJ shows him the title, and then
Yeah.
walks to me and shows me the title, and he's like, "Alright, man, bring it home." I'm like, "The fuck am I doing in here, bro?" I thought, I feel like I drank a lot of coffee that day.
Yeah.
I was like, "Why I drank coffee before the motherfucking fight?" I was like, "Why am I in here? Well, I'm about to fight this man, ding."
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Right, that bell goes off and it's like, well,
Yeah.
you just have to like,
He goes like, yeah, I just want to win it, you know, like for me and also just for her, just to say, you know, I did it. This was all worth it in terms of that. You know, and that's, you know, that hits like, it's really real, you know, from there to hearing, you know, why someone, you know, wants to do, you know, put themselves like through that fire. But at the same token, it's still like understanding, you know, it's understanding there's like a great physical cost. Are we back on the camera or?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so we're back on. Well, we've been back. Yeah.
And look,
Yeah.
that the crucial analysis aside, it's really about what you do with what you learn.
Yeah.
Right? Like I just.
And what's driving you?
Well, I just participated in a
Yeah.
civil trial that was in the federal courts where the main issue was an excessive force claim against a police officer, and we got into all the different chokeholds, lateral vascular neck restraint, how, and from all my years of training, I knew that the term they were using and the way that others had testified about how this maneuver was used, that it was certainly a chokehold, no matter what these police officers said about it. So that was, MMA granted me that gift, right?
Yeah.
And at least I got out
certain
enough
perspective. Yeah.
like to even just recognize that.
Yeah.
And so there's all sorts of cool shit you can end up doing, and if there's gonna be a younger generation that is gonna fucking fight, and we can't just stop that, no matter how intelligent we are.
If anything, that's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like not giving them the opportunity by prohibiting it, you're making it more. It's like, you know, it's like trying to prohibit alcohol. We're trying to prohibit drugs.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, all right, kids, just don't have sex, don't have drugs. All right, good night.
Yeah.
But like the thing about opening a gym,
Yeah.
or like one of my old teammates who has a really Ben Wada, who we still need to have him on. His life story is incredible. He wants to open a gym with me, and he's serious. Like, well, he's like, dude, we owe it to people who want to get into this game to teach them how to fight smart, how to live smart, and
what the lifestyle is.
What the lifestyle is,
I
and
think
the reality.
Yeah, because I think, but this is why, you know, avenues like this is important. You know, like us talking about like the reality of the situation. Because I feel because one thing is it's honesty. You know, because I feel like you have to be honest with what people are getting into. Like you mentioned Ender, our cameraman who's not with us, but he is, you know, he's young and he's ambitious and wants to do all these things. But I feel like, and you know, you're getting a lot of flack for like something that happened, but I feel like you're giving him a dose of reality. And, if anything, it would be a disservice not to give him what reality is.
Totally.
You know, it's just to feel. I feel like you need to know what you're getting into.
Because here's the thing with a kid like that, who's incredibly intelligent, who, you know, he could probably sit down with something and focus on it for so long and then master it.
Yeah.
I would rather him have the experience he had in a training session where I was putting the pressure on him and protecting him, but have him realize and deal with his emotions and his perceived like sense of failure, which obviously he didn't fail.
Yeah.
You know, but just feeling the real heat of what it means to compete, and then go, you know what? I'm gonna be a fucking doctor.
Yeah.
Like I would rather him go, you know what? I didn't like that.
Yeah.
I didn't like that, and I know
Yeah.
competing's gonna be like that,
Yeah.
and so I'm gonna go to medical school, but I'll still train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you need
Choose.
to know that. You
Yeah.
need to you
That's
need
how I
to
feel.
you need to understand. Sometimes you can't understand that without putting. It's like, you know, a child sometimes needs to touch a burning pot to realize, oh, hey, I shouldn't do that. I don't like that. Like from there, or it's like, you know, the episode with Greg. He didn't realize he wasn't a competitor without having to compete. You know, and sometimes I mean that's it. Sometimes that's what you have to do to realize it. You know.
Exactly, and the thing is you're doing nobody any type of. You're not really benefiting anyone and being a compassionate person unless you're exposing them to the other side of the shit.
Exactly.
You're just not. You're protecting them. You're coddling them.
You're coddling
like, oh
them.
yeah, go ahead and fight an amateur. Just even an amateur fight, which
Yeah.
has far more risks, uncompensated amateur fight.
Yeah, right.
Well,
Right, like-
how many people have we seen throughout the years just get fucking messed up?
Yeah, in the amateur circuit.
Yeah.
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 And so, yeah.
And smokers, like
And smokers.
exhibition. There's not any, you know, like.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, so
But it's like all those things that make you successful as a fighter. Like if you find something else, that's where I'm kind of at. Like Greg was actually talking to me about this when I was telling him that I was feeling this way. It's like all those things that make you successful as a fighter, like you build those traits live with you. That is who you are. Like you don't necessarily have to be fighting.
Yeah, it's not separate with fighting.
Yeah. You can take that and apply that to anything.
I did some cool shit when I stopped fighting.
Yeah.
I just did some...
Life continues after
No,
fighting.
life continues, and it's funny because you will be able to operate from this place of intensity that no one will understand, but that'll be such a gift to others who are afraid to come out and afraid to express, because
a lot of people live with their life with their foot on the brake.
All the time.
Few people have never. Yeah, few people have never really pushed that. They've done what we've done in terms of pushing yourself to really see what your limits are, and to understand that you can do a lot more than what you think. And a lot of people never feel that.
And you'll adjust, just like you adjust in the fight game. It's like, it's not one technique that wins the fight. It's fucking ridiculous if you just come out and throw a right hand. You'll adjust. You'll go, okay, I thought this was going to be plan A, but there's certainly plan B, C, D, and then, you learn that in MMA if you really master the art, is that it's mixed. It's a mixed bag of techniques that can get a mixed bag of results, right? But you always switch. You're always evolving. You're always changing. So
take the risk for opportunities and create them. Like that's the biggest thing I try to tell people is create your own opportunities. You can do this in MMA when you're fighting. You do something that creates an opportunity for an opening. And you can apply that to any part of your life. And some people always tell me like, oh, you just get super lucky, you just fall into this job or blah blah blah. But it's like that's discrediting the fact that I open up those opportunities to my self.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you can't. I mean, there is fortune, but But I think the big thing is like what Scott was talking about is that your will.
Mm-hmm.
I think your will to fight. That's not just just for fighting. That will can lead to many other things, to whatever you want to focus it on.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, most fighters don't realize that what their will is actually for. So I think that's one thing people need to realize, that you can take that will into a lot of other things. You can take that mindset. You can be a warrior doing things that don't necessarily involve like one-on-one combat. So. Yeah,
for sure. It's probably one-on-one combat in just combat sports teach you a lot, but it's really the lesser conflict. You know what I mean. And I was thankful enough to just be able to go for it with school, and just. Because fighting for me answered all these questions, all these assumptions that I had against myself. It was really scientific for me. It was spiritual, but it was like, okay, I have this weird evidence in my head. I feel like it's not true. Let me test that shit out. Yeah. Oh, okay, it's not true.
And that's how you.
Bam. That's how you do it. Scientific method. I have this fucked up hypothesis in my head. Let me test it out. Let me retest it out. And then it's credible. I'm not weak. I can fight. I am strong. I am courageous. Bam. Same thing with school. It's like I get back in college. I'm just like, man, I always felt like I was a dumbass. But then instead of dumbass in that negative connotation, it's just like, well, you got to work to learn. You're not always going to be right. Be open to new information. And then same thing. Fucked up hypothesis. Tested, retested. Different result. You know what I'm saying? Than what I had previously thought. And I guess the overall message is like, fighting is just, if you allow it to be, if you reflect on it enough, it can be a catalyst towards just greater things. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm surprised more MMA fighters aren't like entrepreneurs and things like that. right? Because the shit we're talking about, you can just translate that into all sorts of different forms of leadership.
But it's making it possible. You know, it's like making that connection. I feel it's what's important. Like realizing that you're more than just what fighting is. Like pretty much what you are as a person is what drove you to fighting. Mm-hmm. But then that's what builds you up, and then it's not just the fighting skills that get built up. And that's why I look at it too. Because I'm still fighting, I'm still doing this, but I also understand that this is a very finite thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, talking to you, I'm aware of what you're going through. I mean, I'm aware of what Scott's going through, because I'm in it myself. But also understand that it's gonna end soon. From there, I know that for me, it's like I'm at the tail end of this, but understand what I'm doing it for. Mm-hmm. It's like I don't have any like illusions of grandeur. Like I know I'm doing it for a purpose to answer some questions. But I know I can use this to funnel into the next thing I'm going to do. Because it's just one stage, unless I get hit by a bus or something.
Well,
but then in that case, it's like, it's just...
Just think about conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Just think about, how you can take that into the greater skills of conflict resolution.
Into life. I felt like, fighting has really shaped me, or like martial arts has shaped me as a person, like for sure. Mm-hmm. But not just in martial arts, it shaped me as a person. Mm-hmm. And in a lot more. It's really... I was fighting with myself, and I was, fighting to really understand what I wanted, from there. And this was something that really helped me with that, and understanding. I guess big thing is like finding my voice. Yeah. Is from there, and understanding that, I can influence people. I can do things like from that. Because without fighting, I wouldn't have had that. And I feel like that's the thing. I can't separate. There isn't Pocholo and then Pocholo without fighting. Like that's what led me up to there. And I feel the same way with Scott. Yeah. Like, there's not Scott without fighting. There's Scott, and because of fighting, then what happened afterwards.
Yeah, having absolutely no regrets ever about training and fighting. Like none ever. Just like the way it formed me as a person. Like I'm forever thankful for. But it's like, am I at that point where it's like, is it going to have diminishing returns? And for someone who stayed in, I played college softball and didn't want to, and I stayed in that game for so long. I still, to this day, have not picked up a softball or thrown it or like hit a ball or anything like that. And that was over 2 years ago, and I was just like, I'm so done with that.
A softball's coming right at somebody. She's like,
like the Mariners games. At the Mariners games, I'm like foul balls. I'm like, oh, get me away from that.
When they play with like your kids, like, Mom! When they throw a baseball, you go.
you step aside.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, I feel you.
And I just didn't want MMA to turn into that. I didn't want to have that like hostility towards it.
That requires great awareness, and it also requires that's very courageous. And that's the same thing I said to Joel on his episode. It takes courage to realize you have to step away. Yeah. It takes courage to realize that because that's the thing. It's not a lot of people think you're running from something. You're not running. In fact, you're running towards new opportunity. And what's wrong with that? That's like why would you not want to run out of a burning building? Or it's like people go,
new experiences and stuff like that. Yeah.
Why would you stay on the sinking ship, or why would you stay on the ship that's like kicking the shit out of you?
The ship's sinking and the captain's sucking you in the fucking face. It makes no sense.
Wait, what?
There's no life preserver. Everyone's concussed. You're asking for directions, and what the plan is, no one knows.
No one knows.
We'll just choke each other out before we all die.
It's a mess. But no, you had we all made decisions beforehand before we got into the game, and we've learned a lot about it. And all those, it's just about experience, really, human experience.
Absolutely.
So for me, I would have rather had the experience of competing and fighting than have not had it.
Yeah. Totally.
And it's interesting too, because you walk around with a different sort of confidence, knowing that's what you went through. Yeah. I mean, you're not delusional, but you just walk around like, okay, if shit really goes down right now, I'm
good.
I'm gonna be
right,
okay.
Yeah.
And think about all the people in the world who don't have that sense of security, who have never just like, kind of in a way, got vulnerable, because you're opening yourself up to potential domination, really. And you're like, here I am, embarrassment, failure,
potential loss,
in front of spectators, right?
In front of people that you know. Yeah.
But not just verbal, because I can see politicians or attorneys, maybe they feel like, or anybody who's like engaged in some sort of conflict can have that reserve, but something just physically failing like that, though, in terms of
and also the damage being so real.
Yeah.
And so present.
I mean, you walked through that, or it's just like, that's why I think what Vince learned from his loss is phenomenal. I never had that feeling. I mean, I fought, my only loss was Demetrius Johnson in a Muay Thai fight.
Who?
I mean, even that, I mean, feeling that, I wasn't like knocked out. I was just dominated towards the end.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I
can't fuck with you now, but that was fun.
Where's my 5th round?
No, but the loss itself taught me a lot. But Vince in particular, having had that just like probably the worst thing happening, and then coming up
a first round knockout.
Round knockout, standing up now and coming back into the game and wanting to do it again. I think that'll do something remarkable for him. Not if he like rinses and repeats that shit over and over again.
No, but I think that's the thing. But it's taking that, because I've talked to Vince a lot, just like sharing, what his mindset at and why he wants to do it. But it's like realizing, where his headspace is at, like, and understanding, he had all these thoughts about what fighting was as when he first fought. I think he was like 21, 22. But now it's like different. Now that he's older and like, why he's doing it.
Well, let's even talk about DJ real quick too. He has this like interesting inner dialogue where he is never certain about what the result's gonna be. He's confident in preparation.
Yeah.
He knows he works hard. He knows he's gifted. But then he's really surrendered to the fact that it could all go. It could all go, and then he could return to like working. He always says, Scott, if I lose, I'll be at Costco. Yeah. Just working, working in a warehouse. Or He's surrendered to that, and I think he's face to face with reality.
Yes.
On that one.
But I think that's also what helps him, like in terms of like understanding, what his. That's the thing when it comes to DJ's mentality. He's like comfortable, like in that notion, because you see cases where people aren't comfortable with that, like Ronda Rousey, of course, the most glaring, where she, once that confidence like got shattered, it never came back. Like, from there.
Yeah, it's like she lost a sense of who she was because she wasn't undefeated. And
well, she was so fucking just caught in it, you know what I mean?
No, it's like falling into that. It's like that double-edged sword of like the hype.
And then reality just is a
the train crash.
Shin to the chin.
Yeah, shin to the chin, and then Amanda Nunes' fist.
Yeah.
But and then just realizing, just like all the people that want to go into fighting, just like consider it, because success. There's a lot more things than just success. Mm-hmm. Also, success is a lot different than what you think it is. Like getting into it. So I think just being aware of the why. Oh, and also understanding that things change.
Oh, totally.
Right? Like exactly. That's just how life is. You're not gonna be on the same fucking path like always. It's like things in life are gonna change.
I saw this thing. I was like, whatever. But I was like, it was like one bubble was like this person telling this person like, oh, you've changed. And I'm like, the other person's like, thank God, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like back in the high school days, where people would be like, oh, you've changed so much, blah, blah, blah. You used to receive a lot of criticism about it. But then it's like, well...
Let's be honest about high school. You could have like done something different for 3 days, and motherfuckers are like, "Oh yeah, you changed. You changed up real quick. What's this bitch doing? Three-way this bitch right now. Oh, maybe I'm too old. I'm showing my age. Three-way. Oh shit.
Oh, you like mac and cheese now?
Oh, what the hell is this? Oh, you like mac and cheese? Oh, you like mac and cheese? You're not with the in crowd.
Oh, we wear pink on Fridays.
Mac and cheese.
No, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah. And it's like, well, I think it's because those people that critique you on that are afraid of changing themselves.
Yes. I feel like I gotta talk to you about this. Like every like negative thing that people usually like tell you, they're telling themselves, which is why they need to spread that negativity.
Projection.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's crazy, but like just think about it. Like just think about how many people are unhappy with what they do, or don't feel fulfilled, and then that's why when they see somebody rise up, there's so much, just so much.
It's an expression of their inner tension.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And because I think, and another thing, it shows a lacking of their own lives that they don't want to acknowledge. So that's why they'll bring that down. Mm-hmm. That's why a lot of people, because one of the big things, the fears that people have is that they can do something, but they just they're not doing it, and that's a big fear, like fear of missing out of what they're truly wanting to do. And that's what a lot of people end up getting succumbing to. That's what I feel like, especially just given, talking to regular quote-unquote regular people. I was just on vacation, so I had to explain what I do to regular people. You don't get what
the normies.
I know.
Yeah. And it's like, but no, and that's it, because it's like, oh wow, why would you, do that. It's like it's way more complicated than I can ever explain to you. But like if you're the people that I know, the people I do connect with, I don't have to explain to them like what I do, and I understand where they're coming from, and that's just the way it is. Understanding that people with goals, people with visions, and people with the will to get it done, and I think that's the important thing. So sometimes you need to feel burned out to find like something new.
Yeah.
So.
And for me, like growing up, like I always had. Hello.
Davis.
I always had like 1,000 things I was interested in. Like I talked to you guys about like cooking and writing and
dancing.
And dancing. Yeah, like anything that allows me to express myself in an artistic, fashion, or creative way. And so that's why like when I was young, I didn't have the dream of becoming a professional MMA fighter. So for me, it's like, well, I
want to be.
Did I ever really have that dream? Like,
Did you really?
Yeah.
Did you really?
Indiana Jones.
That's fucking tight. Why don't you go do that now?
That is.
I'll go with you.
Yeah.
We just die of like dehydration. But no, I mean, do you have any like last words, parting words, or just last insights for this podcast?
Well, I don't know. I think what you said, like what you asked, advice-wise, what you give someone. For me, I would just say find what's true to you and do that. Find what challenges you to want to be your best self, and don't let anyone force you down a path you don't want to go. And sometimes, like, be open to listening to people, but understand that they could be projecting themselves onto you. And
and we're saying, does your voice harmonize with that, or is it getting drowned out by that? And that's a damaging thing. It's like that cartoon of like, oh hey, I stepped in some. I showed Morgan like this cartoon of like a person. Oh, I stepped in some crap. And the person looked at the shoe. It's like someone else's opinion.
Yeah,
of
right.
my life.
I was like, I'm literally gonna write that on my shoe because I'm like, that's a self-reminder.
But that's an important thing, and I feel like, I think it's a big decision that you're making. It's a very brave decision, and I know you're going, to a new area for a little bit to explore yourself.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to go somewhere new to find out where you really are from there. And I feel like we support you wholeheartedly. We appreciate you coming back to the show. Honestly, you're the biggest episode, not these other losers that were on our show before. Yeah. Step up your following game.
Everything started to tank when we had Vincent on. I don't know if it was that or me and my brother's incoherent rambling about Tacoma.
No, that episode is great. Like you and Colin.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. We need more of that.
Yeah. But thanks for having me on. I love what you guys do, and I love that you guys are willing to put out this conversation that some people just never hear. And so I'm thankful to be a part of it, and you guys will always be my brothers. So I appreciate that.
You'll always be family to us. We appreciate the support. And speaking of support, you can find us on Patreon. That's www.patreon.com/Pankration. Monetary support is great. Social support is great. So any support really is like really appreciated. We're just here trying to.
And did we ever thank Jesse on here for the graphic? I think
I mentioned it. Okay. Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks, Jesse, for making our Pankration
graphic.
Graphic is
it's
really
sick.
tight.
It's great. And we hope to have you on the show on too. Yeah. Very creative mind. Yep. And that's all for the show. Thank you.
Peace out. Thank you guys.